Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 8, The Character of Bharat Maharaj, Texts 28 and 29. The texts are all in prose, so we will do word for 28, and then I'll read the translations and purports. Tatra api, in that birth, Hava, indeed, Atmanaha, of himself, Mrigatva Karanam, the cause of accepting the body of a deer, Bhagavat Aradhana Samiha, of past activities in devotional service, Anubhavena, by consequence, Anusmrutya, remembering, Bhrusham, always, Anutapyamanaha, repenting, Aha, said, Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although in the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj, due to his rigid devotional service in his past life, could understand the cause of his birth in that body. Considering his past and present life, he constantly repented his activities, speaking in the following way. Purport. This is a special concession for a devotee. Even if he attains a body that is non-human, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he advances further in devotional service, whether by remembering his past life or by natural causes. It is not easy for a common man to remember the activities of his past life. But Bharat Maharaj could remember his past activities due to his great sacrifices and engagement in devotional service. Text 29. In the body of a deer, Bharat Maharaj began to lament, "What misfortune! I have fallen from the path of the self-realized. I gave up my real sons, wife, and home to advance in spiritual life, and I took shelter in a solitary holy place in the forest. I became self-controlled and self-realized, and I engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing, thinking, chanting, worshipping, and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. I was successful in my attempt, so much so that my mind was always absorbed in devotional service. However, due to my personal foolishness, my mind again became attached, this time to a deer. Now I have obtained the body of a deer and have fallen far from my devotional practices." Purport. Very, very strong purport by Prabhupada. Due to his stringent execution of devotional service, Maharaj Bharat could remember the activities of his past life and how he was raised to the spiritual platform. Due to his foolishness, he became attached to an insignificant deer and thus fell down and had to accept the body of a deer. This is significant for every devotee. If we misuse our position and think that we are fully engaged in devotional service and can do whatever we like, we have to suffer like Bharat Maharaj and be condemned to accept the type of body that impairs our devotional service. Only the human form is able to execute devotional service, but if we voluntarily give up this for sense gratification, we certainly have to be punished. This punishment is not exactly like that endured by an ordinary materialistic person. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, a devotee is punished in such a way that his eagerness to attain the lotus feet of Lord Vasudeva is increased. By his intense desire, he returns home in the next lifetime. Devotional service is very completely described here. Tad anushravana manana sankirtanaradhananusmaranabhiyogena. The constant hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord is recommended in Bhagavad Gita. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrata. Those who have taken to Krishna consciousness should be very careful that not a single moment is wasted and that not a single moment is spent without chanting and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his activities. By his own actions and by the actions of his devotees, Krishna teaches us how to become cautious in devotional service. Through the medium of Bharat Maharaj, Krishna teaches us that we must be careful in the discharge of devotional service. If we want to keep our minds completely fixed without deviation, we must engage them in devotional service full time. As far as the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are concerned, they have sacrificed everything to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. Yet, they must take a lesson from the life of Bharat Maharaj to be very cautious and to not see that a single moment is wasted in frivolous talk, sleep, or voracious eating. Eating is not prohibited, but if we eat voraciously, we shall certainly sleep more than required. Sense gratification ensues, and we may be degraded to a lower life form. In that way, our spiritual progress may be checked, at least for the time being. The best course is to take the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami, avyarthakalatvam. We should see that every moment of our lives is utilized for rendering of devotional service and nothing else. This is the secure position for one wanting to return home, back to Godhead. You have a question already, Ashraya? Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First the story and then we'll get to the lessons. So Bharat Maharaj, the great Bharat Maharaj, who ruled the universe for 10 million years, that is 2 yuga cycles plus 1 Satya Yuga, literally. And he maintained his perfect Krishna consciousness through 10 million years. And executed his Krishna consciousness to such degree of perfection that he was completely detached from anything material. He could just walk away from being the king of the universe for 10 million years and happily walk away to the forest of Pulaha Ashrama. Unfortunately, in Pulaha Ashrama, he got attached to a deer. And that little thing checked his progress. So much so that in the final moments of his life, his whole consciousness was absorbed in the deer. And he gave up his life thinking about the deer. And in the next life, he became a deer. But there was something that Krishna did for him. That although he was in the body of a deer, Krishna preserved his memory of his previous life. That preservation of memory from a previous life, in this case, is a great boon, because it did not allow him to further degrade from there on. Of course, from an animal body you don't degrade, because you're not expending or you're not collecting any more karma. It's only gradual upgrade back to the human form of life. But in this case, because the memory was preserved, he remembered very clearly. And in the body of a deer, like a self-respecting, honest devotee does, he is regretting his mistake. So there are many lessons, and his regret, he's taking account of how he has fallen. So he says, he was almost self-realized. He gave up his real sons, wife and home without any problem. He took shelter in a solitary place in the forest, which is not easy, but that's what he did. He became fully self-controlled and self-realized. He engaged constantly in devotional service, hearing and chanting and remembering and all spiritual activities. But one little thing. So one might wonder, is that one little thing so much more powerful than 10 million years of devotional activity? So as Jai Jagannath Prabhu was telling us, one might get a little discouraged. Whoa, hold on a second. I thought Krishna is all protecting, and we are convinced that at the time of death, Krishna will come to remind us, even if we forget. So we proceed on great hope. But what is this? After 10 million years, he just spent some time with the deer and that's it? What happened to all of his accrued devotional consciousness? So the lesson is that all that accrued devotional consciousness, Bharat Maharaj did not capitalize on. Had he capitalized on it, yes, he would have been in a different place. But he didn't capitalize on it. He voluntarily, knowingly gave it up for the cause of a deer. Yet Krishna is very kind that he gives a concession. In this case, he gave a concession. The concession was that he preserved his previous life's memory in the life of a deer. Now, for most of us, we want to forget memories from this very life. Forget about remembering something from a previous life. I mean, we don't want to remember that, because very likely some of the things we did in our past life, it's better not to remember. Just by the kind of body we have received, the place we have taken birth in, the circumstances that we have, I guess, grown up in, that's an indicator of what we must have done previously. So it's some rough indicator. So we don't want to remember that. So in most cases, in fact in all cases, not having previous life memory is actually a blessing. It helps move from one life to another life. It's a seamlessly transitioning it. If the memory was there, it's no fun. And there are cases, we've been hearing that there are some cases of persons remembering them. I don't think it's joyful. And after some time, that memory fades away. So Krishna, out of his compassion, gives us memory of certain things and gives us forgetfulness of certain things, which is nice. We want to forget some things. We want to forget the trauma. We want to forget the wounds that have been caused by experiences in the material realm. So, before we get into Bharat Maharaj's, are there other examples you can think of where certain persons who were doing well, either on the path of devotional service, on the path of devotional service, but due to some unfortunate situation, were cursed or put into another life form, and from there on their devotional service moved further? Well, one at a time, please. One at a time. One person raised their hand, someone else spoke. Okay, Pramod? King Indradumna, very good, was cursed to be in the body of an elephant. And from there his devotional service, although in that life form he didn't remember until 1,000 years of fighting was completed. And then he realized, whoa, this is not something I can do on my own. And he remembered all the prayers from his previous life. And then he called out to the personality of Godhead. Okay, very good. Next one. Vritrasura. We heard the pastime just yesterday or a couple of days ago. Yesterday. That he was in the body of a great king, the leader of the Vidyadharas, but cursed to be born in the body of a demon, like dull demon. But in that body he remembered his Krishna consciousness was fully preserved. Another example. There are many. Okay, I'll help out. King Nriga, there's a story in the Krishna book. King Nriga was a very, very great king. And he had given millions of cows in charity to one Brahmana. And he gave hundreds and thousands of cows to another Brahmana in charity. One cow from this group just sort of sauntered into that group. And the two Brahmanas had a little disagreement as to who that cow belongs to. Can you imagine? After having 1 million cows, that Brahmana is talking about the one cow that belongs to him. So normally we might think, well, these Brahmanas were so greedy about one cow. He could have said, it belongs to you, please take. Doesn't matter, I have so many. You can take one. No, you can take one cow. What does it matter? No. Then there would have been some argument as to who should take the cow. But the disagreement was not because they were greedy for one cow. But it's a Brahminical principle that is to who the charity belongs to. That's important. And that was the argument. But he was cursed to become a lizard. And he waited for thousands of years for the graceful touch of Sri Krishna to regain his ecstatic form again as king. Another example? Yes. Whoa. One raises, other speaks. Girish? Ahalya. Very nice. A very, very chaste and great lady. The wife of Gautama Rishi. Gautama Rishi cursed her to become dull and become a stone. And she waited for thousands and thousands of years for the graceful touch of Lord Ramachandra's lotus feet. And back again. So that was another concession, that she was preserved. That the concession was that they would meet the personality of Godhead and get his graceful touch. Another example, coming up in Kartika, Nalakuvara and Manigriva. Although they were not great devotees per se, but they were sons of a very great person. And they were wallowing and enjoying in a severely intoxicated state in the wonderful gardens of Kuvera. And they were naked and they were frolicking. When Narada Muni came, the ladies were shy. They covered themselves. But these two Prabhus stood up naked and like, oh, what's going on? They was totally in an intoxicated stage. And Narada Muni, instead of becoming angry, he considered for a long time, what would be most beneficial for these two Prabhus? How can I elevate them? And so he cursed them, become Arjuna trees. The curse has a very special significance. Become Arjuna trees. So among all trees, there are many trees, the redwoods and all that, they grow tall for many thousands of years. But the Arjuna trees are very significant. They have a very deep root system. And it's described that the Arjuna tree roots, generally for a tree, the roots begin right where the trunk touches the ground. That's where the roots begin. But the Arjuna trees, the roots begin halfway between the ground and the first branch. And so the roots go wide this way. So what happens when they're very wide? It gives the tree extreme stability. So in that stability, they can withstand hurricanes. They can withstand all sorts of climactic extremes. Nothing happens to them. So he didn't even give them a body that, stand as a little twig that one whiff and you'll fall off. He gave them Arjuna trees. And they became relieved of all of that by Krishna's grace. As a little boy, baby actually, Krishna crawled right between the two trees while he was bound by a rope to Mother Yashoda, bound to a grinding mortar. So our scientists, please consider that these Yamala Arjuna trees, Yamala means bear of Arjuna trees that are so big, so strong that don't fall even in great storms and hurricanes, fell by a gentle tug from Lord Shri Krishna. So one might consider, okay, Krishna is very strong. We can understand that. Maybe he's a really strong boy. Why didn't the rope break? When Krishna pulled, the trees are strong. Krishna may be very strong, but according to physics, the weakest point is wherever the weakest link is. So why didn't the rope snap? Are the ropes so strong they can bring down Yamala Arjuna trees? So something to think about. We'll come back to it at the end of class. Another example? Yes, Ashra? Yeah, Veda Shira and another Veda someone. They cursed each other. You're so envious. Become a snake. And he came to Yamuna. It was Kalya, and finally he got fantastic chastisement by the Lord dancing on his head, on Kalya's head, and removed all the envy from him. Very good. In the Mahabharata, there's a story of the Vasus. The Vasus are great personalities who were cursed to fall to the earth. And among those Vasus, there was one Vasu who was considered the greatest. And he became Bhishma Deva. All the other Vasus returned back because Mother Ganges, the only way that they would be purified is they were born to Mother Ganges, and she would put them back into the river, and that was their punishment, that they would go away, back. So King Shantanu, because he fell in love with Ganga Devi, and she had taken a promise that you will not question any of my actions. So he thought, she may do a lot of shopping and it's okay. That's not, okay, I will not question that. She may cut a lot of coupons and store them and, wake up early in the morning for the day after Thanksgiving sale or something. He said, yeah, no problem. But what she did is started putting one baby after another into the river and killing them. It's like, whoa, what's going on? The first time he said, this is too much. But he restrained himself. He thought maybe first time she did, something's going on, but I love her too much. Second time, third time, fourth times, like she went on and on and on. She's like, what's going on? These children. And she said, you cannot question them. But he couldn't restrain. By the time she was ready to put this little boy, the last one, into the river, he checked her. What are you doing? She said, oh, my king, I wish you had not checked me. Because I have a specific purpose to come to this place just to deliver these children back. But since you've asked, I have to return back to my heavenly abode. And she left the boy and went away. So he was left behind with a young boy who became, of course, Bhishma Dev. So there's another pastime of our great sage, Narada Muni. Narada Muni was a Gandharva. Before he became Narada Muni, he was a Gandharva by the name Upavarana. And he was invited by the demigods to a Harinam Sankirtan party. So he went there. And all the demigods, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, they were all Siddhas, they were all sitting in Kirtan. And he was one of the best Kirtan singers. So he started singing Kirtan. They were glorifying Vishnu. In the middle of the Kirtan, as it was going and he was singing so nicely, he also wanted to flatter the demigods who had invited him. So he began singing the glories of the demigods. The demigods, suddenly their absorption, their concentration was broken. What is this? Why are you singing our glories? This is specifically Harinam. We are supposed to sing the glories of Lord Krishna. What are you doing? You're so dull-headed. We curse you to become a Shudra. And from Gandharva state, fell right into Shudra state. Born to a Shudrani, who was like a maidservant. Prabhupada, she was a maidservant. However, because he was a great personality, he was graced by the association of the Bhaktivedantas. And so he rendered some humble service to them. He took the plates that they had eaten, he would clean the place where they had eaten and sat and did some menial service to them. And they became very, very grateful to him. And in return, they reciprocated with that little boy by giving him the remnants of their food. This is very potent. Getting a pure devotee's food remnants can transform one's consciousness beyond one's imagination. Just from that. And he became fully attracted to them and to the personality of Godhead. And he went. And then the story or the pastime unfolds that his mother was bitten by a snake. Still his mind did not get disturbed. He had heard from the Bhaktivedantas that up north he can find the personality of Godhead. So he started walking towards the Himalayas. Crossed villages, towns, cities, forests, parks, all of that, but didn't get distracted. Went straight to the Himalayas, and on the way he had full vision of the personality of Godhead. And then the voice that in this lifetime, that is it. But in your next life, he said, in the next day of Brahma, the opening of a new kalpa, I had my full spiritual form as Narada. Not only did he get a full spiritual form, he is the avatar. He is the expansion, Shaktavesha avatar of the Lord's devotional potency. And his name is Narada, which means he is the one who can give Narayana to anyone. Narada. He has that capacity. Just yesterday I was studying Madhurya Kadambini. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur raises a question, how does bhakti begin? And he goes through different arguments. Bhakti begins because, some say bhakti begins because of previous good deeds. And he says, well, that's not possible because bhakti is spiritual and something spiritual cannot manifest from material piety. So that's not a cause. And so some say it is Krishna's mercy. And then he questions that. Well, if it is Krishna's mercy, why is it not manifesting in everybody? Why only some people are becoming devotees? So you cannot say that it is Krishna's mercy. Or the other flip side of the argument is then Krishna's partial. Oh, you can become a devotee, or you cannot. It doesn't work like that, because Krishna is not like that. Then he uses the term yadrichaya. Yadrichaya means somehow or the other. Commonly that's said as somehow or the other. And he explains that yadrichaya actually means that somehow or the other has a phenomena. The phenomena is that Krishna gives his full permission and power of attorney to a Madhyama Adhikari. And the Madhyama Adhikari can or is the catalyst for bhakti to begin in others. Because there is bhakti in every living entity, naturally there, dormant. And it's the Madhyama Adhikari who's the catalyst who awakens that bhakti. So for some persons who receive that association, bhakti awakens. Those who don't receive that association, bhakti doesn't awaken. So it gives a very perfect analysis of how bhakti begins. So Narada Muni has the capacity to give. And Narada Muni has disciples across all species of life. Different species Narada Muni can deliver, no problem. So here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is cautioning us, now the sobering aspect of the discussion. Prabhupada is telling us that one should be very cautious. One shouldn't take Krishna's mercy for granted. That, because I am performing devotional service, I can do anything as I like. That is taking it for granted. And the risk is extremely high. Taking it for granted, he says, we should not misuse our position. Our position as devotees, that, the world out there is karmis, fallen souls. But I'm a devotee. That's misusing the position. Although factually it is true that we are not part of the sense gratification camp. But just because now I am a devotee, I don't have to be cautious or aware or vigilant, is the formula for distress. Or I am now initiated, so I'm okay. Those who are not initiated, they are not okay. No. Or I have certain position in the society of devotees. I have certain accomplishments within the society of devotees. These are all formula for disaster waiting to happen. So the remedy is to not waste any moment, or to say it positively, to engage every moment in hearing, chanting, activities of devotional service. That way, we don't give any space, any moment of time to non-devotional activities. We just came back from Gita Nagari, and the whole theme of the Gita Nagari retreat was utilizing time in Krishna's service. What does it mean? How to do it? Etc. And Jai Jagannath gave the example of, Prabhupada was quoting, about Indian people traveling by train. You ask them, can I have a little space? Actually, you don't have to offer a seat. On a seat, if 3 people are already sitting, the persons will come and say, move a little, move a little. They will demand some space, because 3 people sitting on a seat is too much luxury. 6 is about what is just about normal. And your real compassion shows up when you allow 9. They can fit in. Or the story of the Arab and the camel. There was an Arab who was traveling with his camel, and after a whole day's travel, when he pitched his little tent, he slept inside his tent. And at about 11 o'clock at night, the camel woke him up and said, "Oh, Arab, the sandstorm is coming, and I'm afraid that my nose and eyes and ears are going to get beat up by the sand. Can I just put my head inside the tent? Let my whole body be outside. That's okay." So Arab thought, well, there's no harm, just the face is inside. Then at about 1 a.m., the camel woke him up and said, "My face is all nice, but my neck is getting beat up by the sandstorm. It's really hurting. Can I just put my neck inside?" He said, "All right, neck is fine." At 3 a.m., the camel woke him up again. He said, "I have 2 humps, but one hump is really hurting. Can I just put my hump inside? I'll keep the other hump outside. How about that?" He said, "All right, no problem." And at 5 a.m., the camel didn't have to wake him up. He woke up. And when he opened his eyes, he saw the beautiful sky. And he wondered, why is he not in the tent? Because the camel had gently put his face, neck, hump, body, tail, everything. And the camel was inside the tent, nicely sleeping. And the Arab was outside, exposed to the elements. So Maya is like that. Takes a little and takes away the whole thing. Or time. Time wasters are such that a little time wasting becomes a habit, and then little time wasting becomes little more time wasting, and a little more time wasting, and before we know, our entire time is wasted in wasteful activities. Not only activities, but everything is wasteful. So it's an asset given to us. It's a fixed asset. Fixed because our time is fixed. And it is up to us how we utilize it. And Prabhupada is cautioning us, please don't waste time. Because wasting time out of or away from Krishna conscious activities has extremely deleterious effects. The effects are that we will lose this human form of life. Now, in the case of Bharat Maharaj, he executed his devotional service for 10 million years to a very, very intense degree, and therefore he remembered in his next life. I can't say about you, but for myself, I don't think I have that credit behind to say, well, next life, I'll at least remember. We won't remember. It's too big a risk to take. Too big. Last night, in our Bhakti Vriksha, we were discussing the point. Krishna in the 8th chapter is telling how one becomes situated in a position of yoga. He says at the time of death, when one remembers the personality of Godhead, either through chanting Omkara, and then Prabhupada talks about chanting of Hare Krishna. One person in the group asked, is it true, really true, that even if a person doesn't do anything related to Krishna throughout their life, but at the point of death, they say Hare Krishna, and they will be transferred to the spiritual world? I said, yes, even that concession is given. Then the person said, then why try? Why try throughout life anyway? Because if that's going to happen, somehow or the other, if the end of life I say Hare Krishna, I'm done. And I said, but that's a very, very big risk. It's like a lottery ticket. There's no guarantee you're going to win the lottery. So this person said, well, what if I want to take that risk? Maybe I will win that lottery. So I challenged, well, if that's how you want to do it, then why don't you lead every aspect of your life like that? Not just in the case of remembering Krishna. You should risk it for everything. So I said, tonight, when you're returning home, this is how you should drive your car. You turn the car on, you close your eyes, do not put your seatbelt on, and just drive to see if you'll get home. There is possibility you could get home. It is possible that if you're really lucky, no one's going to hit you, you won't hit anyone, and you'll reach home. So take that risk. Oh, no. But then you shouldn't take risk for not remembering Krishna. You can't say, I'll read my life as I like, and at the last moment, Hare Krishna, back to spiritual world. It won't work. It just doesn't work like that. We won't remember. Unless there is a devotee present and they're the cause of that concession. They are the super generous cause for reversing our karmic trajectory. That's too risky. Not worth it. So Rupa Goswami tells us avyartha kalatvam. Vyartha means wasted. Avyartha means are not wasted. So great sages, great personalities like Narottam Das Thakur, they help us through their songs. And Narottam Das Thakur says, I wasted this life. I've wasted by not remembering Krishna. So any moment where it's described that we don't think of Krishna or we are not engaged in serving Krishna, that moment has been irreversibly lost. Money, even if lost, can be gained again. But time that is lost cannot be gained. They try whatever, cannot be gained. One can become frustrated, one can become agitated, they can cry, they can throw a tantrum, whatever. In fact, by doing all that, we're wasting more time. Right? Lamentation is a very, very tricky thing. If something has happened in our life, then we learn to move on. This is the best way to utilize time, to learn to move on. Repenting is necessary, but that repenting, if done in a Krishna-conscious way, it at least stops us from wasting further time in lamenting. Oh, I've wasted so much time, I wasted so much time, I wasted so much time. And in that, we waste more time. Confirmed. Lamentation is a severe time killer. It's a time waster. One shouldn't lament. One should regret. One should regret how we are wasting our time, or how we have wasted our time. And if there are aspects in our daily life where there are time wasters, one should remove that. I was taught that generally time wasting happens in two areas. One, wherever we have what is called discretionary time, that's usually wasted. Because our conditioning in Kali Yuga is, we don't know how to use time. Therefore, Prabhupada gave us service after service after service, engagement after engagement, so that the concept of discretionary time goes away. Because if there is discretionary time, we lose our discretion, we lose time, we waste it. That is one area. Another area that time usually is wasted is transitioning from one engagement to another engagement. We finish one service, we have to begin another service. That transition is usually where time is wasted. Oh, I just did this 5 more minutes and then I'll start the other one. And then it's 5 becomes 10 and like that. And another time waster is that the mind and the subtle body and the gross body are not connected. You know what I mean by that? Spaced out, fantastic. There's so much space between the subtle body and gross body. That the mind is somewhere and the body is somewhere. And hours have passed and we have only mopped about 2 square feet of this. Like, wow. That was really deep cleaning. or something. Or we have japa and our hand in our bead bag, and then we consider all the problems of life. And we notice all unnecessary things exactly during japa time. Other time we don't notice it. It's just during japa time we notice all the unnecessary things. Oh, the lamp is like that. Oh, did you notice there's so much gap between... Whatever, it's just things like... It's just... Because there's so much disconnect between the subtle body and the gross body. Those are time wasted. And then we drag everything, every activity that we have... What can be done in 10 minutes, maybe, takes 10 days. Another time waster is procrastination. Our favorite procrastination. Something should be done now, we'll leave it for later. Something should be done now, we'll leave it for later. There is a pastime of Srila Prabhupada. We heard this in Gita Nagari, so I'll share with you. There was a disciple of Prabhupada, her name was Mother Shilavati, who Prabhupada personally trained in deity worship. And she used to live in LA. And so the idea was, Prabhupada thought that different pujaris from different temples would go to her and she would teach them. So in one case, Prabhupada then said, instead of everyone traveling to meet her, maybe she travels from one place to another place. And so she came to a particular place and she was training the pujaris. And then she came to Prabhupada and said, the hour and a half that is there is not enough to do the abhishek and dress the deities and get them all ready for the 7 o'clock. Can we get 15 more minutes? And Prabhupada said, no. What you have is sufficient time. And then he said, tomorrow I will come and I will dress the deities. So here, consider this. Anyone who dresses the deities, they know. Once you're used to where things are, how it is done, there is some efficiency built into it. But if you go to a completely new temple, you don't know where the jewelry is, you don't know how the deity is structured, how to dress, it takes forever. Prabhupada walked on the altar, got all the things together, boom, 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 boom. And he finished dressing with extra 15 minutes left. And he told her, no need to change any timings. You can finish. He is so present with Krishna. Everything is efficient. Those are elements of time that are very important. The most important thing is, where is our consciousness? If our consciousness is situated in service attitude, time expands for us to be able to perform what we need to do. If there is a discrepancy in our service attitude, time contracts to such a degree that we're not able to get anything done. We become frustrated. Just as time and space are two dimensions, and Lord Kapila describes that these two dimensions interact with each other. For example, just a little on time. In the Kaliya pastime, Krishna visits that particular place where Kaliya was. And that happens mid-morning. But Krishna has to walk from Nandagram all the way to where Kaliya is, which is quite a walk. It takes about 2.5, 3 hours to walk. But for Krishna and the cowherd boys, they were there almost instantaneously. So it's described that the lotus-like Vrajamandala, for the sake of enhancing Krishna's pastimes, it folds and opens. So when it folds, the distances are shorter. When it opens, the distances are longer. So for Krishna's service, the whole of Vrajdam contracts. So the concept of time changes accordingly. First of all, time itself is relative, and then there is the eternal time. Eternal time is such that there is no passage of it. There's always the present. There's no concept of past, no concept of future. It's the eternally existing. In our material realm, time is relative in the sense that there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future. So for a devotee who's efficient, or who's fixed in service attitude, or let's say it this way, to the degree that our service attitude is awakened, to that degree we are efficient. We're able to utilize time. If we compare the way we spend time and the way Prabhupada spent his time, there's no comparison. Age was against him, health was against him, yet he accomplished single-handedly what others... even if 50 people together worked, they couldn't do it. Why? Because time worked differently for Prabhupada, the great acharyas. It's the devotional attitude or service attitude. So Prabhupada is cautioning us, let's not take for granted this life opportunity and utilize it carefully in Krishna's service. Avyartha kalatvam. Because we cannot take the risk that in the next lifetime we will remember. We can't take that risk. Also, concession might be available, but we can't take that risk. We should not take that risk. Any comments, questions, anything you'd like to add? Yes, Himanshu, Bhakta Luke.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your class. I was wondering if you might be able to explain a little bit more on this principle of letting, the examples you're giving of the camel and the fat Bengali wife. I was thinking, at least for myself, it's like the camel's already in the tent. I'm outside the tent. And
the camel is what?
Already in the tent. It's not a matter of letting him in slowly.
Oh, in your case, the camel's already in the tent.
Yeah, I'm starting from the outside of the tent. So how do we better understand this?
Look around. You'll find me around somewhere.
So I was just wondering, it's like the caution is don't let even a little bit of Maya in, but I'm already working with a lot of Maya and I'm trying to push it out. So it's kind of scary. If a little bit can become huge, then what to speak of when there's a lot and we're trying to minimize. So if you could speak a little bit on that.
It is true that the consequences of Maya or karma are enormously huge. And when we depend on our own assets and capacity, then we find ourselves atomic in size compared to the amount of karmic reactions we have to burn. It's just not possible. Because everything is relative. Let's say we are atomic. Maya is this big. But if we go stand next to Krishna, who's this big, then Maya looks very small. So the call to action for every devotee is, how much are they closer to Krishna? How much are they allowing Krishna to be part of their lives? In that sense, then karma becomes very insignificant in front of Krishna. Krishna Surya Sama, Maya Haya Andhakar. Jahan Krishna, taha nahi Mayara Adhikar. But the tendency is to look at anarthas, look at something and either challenge it on one's own strength or to give up because I don't have enough strength. That giving up is actually a weakness, that we are not depending on Krishna sufficiently or enough. Something that I've been thinking about more and more is the meaning of dependence on Krishna. Dependence has many connotations. One way of dependence we can understand is to know that the relationship with Krishna is most important for me. And without that relationship, I cannot do anything. That is dependence. So what am I doing that is either strengthening or hurting that relationship? And hopefully we will increase those things and activities and all that will enhance the relationship and minimize and eliminate those that hurt the relationship. On our own strength is impossible. Daivihi esha gunamaya mama maya duratya. Krishna also acknowledges that is true. The camel's already in the tent. He says, Ma meva ye prapadyante. I give them a new tent. And then depending on that, we might get a new camel too. We get a new tent. Is that okay?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much. I've experienced in an attempt to overcome this time-wasting propensity, trying to do more, okay, I'll do this thing and then this thing, and just trying to find so many different things to do. But still I will be distracted. That wasn't really a solution, to just kind of fill my schedule up with so many things.
What is the solution for
this time wasting?
well, just as when we chant japa, we make a determination. Today I will focus on every syllable of the holy name. And about 16 hours later, 16 rounds later, even that may be true, but 16 rounds later, we find ourselves, wow, I couldn't pay attention. But there's an element which is very important, and that is Krishna's grace. That the mind, the space, time, these are all Krishna's energies. And Krishna is the controller, not we. Just because we grimace our face and contort, the eyebrows, it's not going to increase our concentration. That is our way of fighting with it, but it's not going to work. Unless we humbly pray to the holy name and to Krishna, I'm very feeble, I'm making an attempt. By your grace, please allow me to hear the holy name. And that's when Krishna's, oh, you're really trying. So yeah, even our time, we may make schedules. We as good as we are at making schedules, we are as good at not following them. Because there are so many things dynamically happening around us, and we have no capacity to consider, oh, this will not happen, that will, who knows what's going to happen. So we may make a schedule, but ultimately, my dear Krishna, please allow me to engage my day in your service. I'm very feeble. I get easily swayed away. My mind gets distracted. Please help me. So last question.
Thinking about association.
You're thinking about association.
How do we use our association to help one another be more efficient with our time?
How do we use association to become more efficient? When we associate with each other, the primary thing to do to become efficient is to enhance each other's faith in Krishna, in the process of bhakti, in the spiritual master, in the devotees, etc. Because by that, our service attitude is awakened. The reason I don't know Prabhupada's mind, I can't get in there, but just it's kind of obvious, is the reason Prabhupada designed such a beautiful program for the day is to wake up in the morning, we come and commit ourselves to the spiritual master, we chant japa, we hear Bhagavatam class, is to awaken our service attitude for the day, so that the rest of the day is spent efficiently. And at the end of the day, if there's some discrepancy, it's readjusted, recalibrated by the evening class, evening arati. So it's a fantastic model. We don't have to create our own thing. It's given very beautifully. Just follow it, and it's there. Yeah? Okay. Oh, yeah, why the rope did not break. So one devotee, thank you, one devotee expressed a realization that the rope by itself is very weak. It can snap easily. But because the rope was tied to Krishna's belly, because connected to Krishna, it had immense strength that otherwise it doesn't have. And Krishna used the rope for a particular service to bring down the trees. So similarly, as individual devotees, we don't have sufficient strength. We don't have any strength. But when we're connected to Krishna in service, we get strength that is far beyond our imagination. That is why the rope can work. Okay? Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.